Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Wendy Weekly. And today, Thursday, the 19th of November, we've got a very special guest on the show. I'm really excited about this one because, you know, it's great to interview people who run businesses that are related to HMOs, but it's even better to interview people who are actually doing HMOs, who actually have a portfolio, who've invested their time, their money, their knowledge and their skills in building a portfolio. And the person I have on today's interview is just such a person. He's James Stevens from Southampton, but actually invests in other parts of the world, which we're going to tell you all about in a moment. And James and I kind of connected through the Ultimate HMO Success System group, but I was really keeping an eye on what he was doing. I was a bit nosy, probably stalking him from afar. And I invited him to come on today because I think actually when you get to see what real people are doing with real buildings, it's so inspirational. So James, a very big welcome to you onto the show today.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, pleasure to be here.
So James, just let's kind of take a few steps back first of all. Tell us a little bit about how you got into property and what kind of started you thinking about investing in property.
An accident, well, by accident, got me into property. So it originally started, I've got a CGI company. So, you know, I've been working day in, day out with architects and other developers for years. And then 2013, we had the opportunity to self-build our own house, me and my wife. And being the kind of, you know, how hard can it be kind of guy that I am, I just thought, well, how hard can it be to build a house? You know, everyone does it. So we ended up doing a self-build, which was like the first thing really outside of, you know, the CGI work that I'd ever done on a building site. And then, so we cracked that out in 2013. Then soon after that, a fantastic commercial property in Southampton came up for auction. And for the space, you know, it's right next to the football stadium in Southampton. And for the price it was on for, it's an absolute steal. So I said to my wife, well, my wife's a dancing teacher now with a dancing school, but I said to her, you know, do you fancy doing this as a massive dancing school? And she was like, yeah, okay. And I was like, well, how hard can it be to refurbish a 400 square meter commercial space, like as you do? So like, yeah, so we bought that at auction for like an absolute steal. And the reason it was a steal is because it had 4 rejected plannings to convert into residential using PD, permitted development. But we weren't using it for that at all. We were going to continue to use it as community space. So the council were like, yeah, fantastic, we love it, yeah, that's fine, don't worry, we'll put that through. So there was basically no one bidding on it. We picked it up for peanuts for what it was, and then did a 6-month conversion on it. And then that kind of started, you know, the first 2 projects were effectively for ourselves, not for profit, not for anything other than for ourselves. And then I kind of thought, you know, obviously years of being interested in property, I thought, well, you know, let's do some flips and do other bits and bobs.
Right. Okay. So you really got started because you had to kind of learn those skills to do what you want to do, which is build your own house and also develop a business studio for your wife.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you weren't thinking at that stage it was going to be a kind of income producing asset long term?
No, not at all. It was just born out of necessity. We needed a house. We built a house. You know, she needed to expand her business and have her own premises, and we did that. That's exactly how it started.
Amazing. That's absolutely brilliant. So that was how long ago?
So that was all 2013 that kicked off, and the commercial unit was 2015. And then ever since then, it's just been snowballing from there.
So whereabouts do you invest, James?
So I'm based down near Southampton. I'm between Winchester, Southampton and Portsmouth. So, you know, any of those cities. My business partner, Martin, is based in Somerset. So we cover Somerset and South Wales where he operates. So he's operated in South Wales and mainly Swansea for, you know, many years now.
So when you first started thinking about property as an investment, what was it that triggered that process?
Well, actually thinking, let's monetize this and let's go on. I guess, saw other people doing well out of it, and I picked up the skills to do it. So I kind of thought, well, let's give it a go and see what happens. And that's and then because the margins down here are very difficult to work with, there's a lot of competition down here, very little opportunity. We ended up kind of pushing further and further, and moving now to South Wales, where there's still lots of opportunity in the right place. You look in the right places, there's still plenty of opportunity.
So when you first started, did you start off doing HMOs, or were you doing commercial conversions? You've obviously had an experience of doing lots of different types of strategy. Flips you mentioned as well. What was it that you first started doing?
So it's flips we first started doing, and at the same time trying to plug away relentlessly assisted sales to local agents, which they just look at you. Well, the thing with assisted sales, you either look at they either look at you like you got no money, and it's you're like part of the rent to rent group, the gang of people who try to start something with no money, or they look at you like you're a con artist or something. But I was, for me that concept worked brilliantly, because you weren't paying 250 grand for the house and then paying stamp duty, bridging finance, and whacking 50 grand straight on top just for all of that before you've done any work. So to me it was brilliant, but failed for years to sell that concept to estate agents. It's only recently, going direct to vendor, that we've really started to pick that side of things up. So yeah.
And how did you learn your strategies? How did you learn where to do all of this?
Internet, free, like, I didn't do any expensive training or anything like that. Plenty of books, plenty of videos, speaking to other people. Yeah. And then really just knuckling down, and you've got to make it your life. It's intense. But yeah, you've got to be on it 24/7 really to find the opportunities and make it happen.
Interesting. That's really interesting. So you're the kind of person who understands pretty quickly that actually implementing what you're learning is the key to real learning, isn't it?
Yeah. And I learned the hard way, and learned some amazing lessons by learning the hard way. Is on my first two flips, I lost money. So on the first two, I lost like 30,000 between them. But even at the time, I was like, well, you're never going to make those same mistakes again. And it's very difficult, I find, to teach people mistakes if you've never made them yourself. So I find a lot of people who've made mistakes are a lot more hard-nosed and a lot more kind of wary of the pitfalls, rather than just hearing it in theory. But ever since then, it's been absolutely fine. And, we've only gone on and, made money since then. But it just goes to show that it's not all roses, and it's not easy. And even when you've got experience doing it, doesn't mean you can always translate into suddenly making money.
So at what point did you decide to give up your job, or in fact, do you still run your CGI business? Is that still continuing?
Yeah, I've still got the CGI business. I mean, I don't sort of do the day-to-day so much nowadays, but that's still running in the background, because we still have so many clients, other developers and architects that I work with and stuff. So it's all it's all part of the same network effectively. It's just a lateral step from doing the CGIs to doing the builds themselves.
Okay, that's brilliant. So you've obviously demonstrated how it's possible to have multiple streams of income. So you had your business. Your wife's obviously a businesswoman as well, with her dance business, although presumably at the moment there's no tapping going on.
No, just a lot of sighing and being like, oh.
Yes, lots of frustration. Yeah. I can imagine. Quite a few high kicks in the kitchen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So in terms of what you're doing at the moment, James, what are you up to? How many deals have you got on the go? What projects are you working on right now?
So we've got loads on the go at the moment. So down here, Hampshire, we've got a couple of planning uplift things in the pipeline. Well, they're in planning, so they're nearly done. But the nitrates issue down here is a pain in the bum at the moment. So getting actually anything approved is a nightmare. And then up in Swansea, we've got 5 HMO projects on the go, which be a total of 47 rooms.
Wow, that is a lot at one time, isn't it?
Yeah. So all of them bar one we purchased with planning permission, and all the others we've achieved planning permission by. It's kind of the thing. It's the one I do like that about Wales, the fact that the PD right. Well, the PD rights are removed, and in a lot of cases, and basically the whole country's Article 4. So you can't just go, oh, I've bought a 3-bed house for peanuts, I'm just going to turn it into a 9-bed HMO. You have to go through planning, and I quite like that, because it means that there's not a great deal of competition, because it's having to take those planning punts. And although they're punts, they are calculated. We've got a great planning consultant, Jason Evans, who we work with, who's fantastic. So we can run everything past him. We do plenty of homework on the area, and precedents is set on the road and things like that. So it's not a blind, let's just have a bash at this. It's very calculated, and so far we've had great success.
I think that really just goes to show, actually, how there's two things that spring to mind as you're talking. One of them is that doing your due diligence and doing you sound to me as being a fairly methodical kind of person who works through what the barriers to entry could be, and figures out that actually if something's got a higher barrier to entry, it could serve you well if you're the one who's prepared to put in the work and do the due diligence and make sure you've got your professional team on board. And I see people making that mistake a lot, is sort of jumping into HMOs without having done that homework.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is that actually there's been a benefit to you in investing somewhere where there are more barriers to entry, because it's meant you've had to become more methodical and more determined, if you like, to make sure that what you're doing is going to reap rewards, rather than just pick a property, any property. Oh, look, there's one on Rightmove. I'll go and buy that and turn it into an HMO.
Absolutely. I mean, the other benefit there is, you see, because you're working within strict rules of the Article 4s, you're not going to be achieving planning for an HMO, say in a road where the whole road is HMO, because there's no Article 4 and the whole market is saturated. Yes, there are a lot of HMOs in Swansea, but the sort of target market we're looking at, we don't feel like there's a massive amount of competition. And the properties we go for, there is also not a lot of competition, because they've either got commercial elements or they're a commercial property, which is automatically, a lot of people just run for the hills as soon as as soon as it's not a conventional house, they're gone. So we operate kind of in a band where there's very little competition. Like I say, that the risk is higher, but it allows us to get these properties at great prices and achieve massive uplift.
So what kind of room rents are you getting in Swansea? What's the sort of typical rental?
Well, it depends really. Sort of looking at 400, 450 maximum if there's a non-ensuite, so shared bathroom. And then, the sort of level we're looking for, it's kind of 495 to 520 for a high-end room with an ensuite.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's excellent. And what kind of prices are you able to get the properties for?
Well, it really depends. So we bought the one next to the train station, which is about 40 meters from the train station. I put a video up on it on a few of the groups a few days ago. We bought 2 semi-detached properties. So we bought both of them, and it had a commercial element in one of them. We bought those for 160,000 for the 2. 40 meters from the central train station, and right next to the new 750 room student block that they're still building. So we've bought that for 160. We're going to spend 60 on it, and then, having spoken to our surveyor that we work with already, we're going to be looking at 380 to 400 GDV when finished. So we're 220, 230 all in with fees and everything like that, and then
Great.
Final value sort of 380.
So obviously, with a model like that, which really more or less allows you to recycle your money, doesn't it? You're valuing up sufficiently enough to be able to pull out your initial investment.
Yeah.
Has this meant that you've mostly invested with your own money?
Yeah, well, for the last 7 years up until now, we've done it all with our own money. I just think mainly because, you kind of want to prove to yourself, well, I wanted to prove to myself before using other people's money that we could do it. So yeah, really, that's what, up until now, it's all been our own cash we've done it with.
But you've reached a point now where you're looking at maybe working with investors or starting to raise money from investors. Is that right?
Yeah, only because dealing with lenders is a full-time job on its own now. and when you're trying to do five refinances and 2 development loans all at the same time, it is a full-time job dealing with lenders and solicitors, and it's absolutely insane. Luckily, my other partner in the company we're doing the HMOs with, Anthony, he deals with all of that, because I haven't got time to do that, deal with planning, do everything in the middle, and then Martin deals with everything on site and is the boots on the ground. But it's literally a 3-man job just to do what we're doing at the moment, and full time as well.
and actually that's a really interesting comment, because I think probably over this last 6 months we've seen changes in the mortgage market, we've seen changes to the products that people can get, but I think we're also seeing the commercial market becoming more of a reflection of the standard buy-to-let market, which is really highly regulated. Now, a year ago you could get a commercial mortgage without too much fuss. It was time consuming, but it wasn't a full-time job. But I think what we're seeing now is commercial lenders becoming much more sort of assiduous and much more picky about the information that they want from you. They literally want your inside leg measurement before they'll give you a decision in principle.
They've asked for that before.
At least that's one, it shouldn't change too much. unless you're like my 12-year-old son and shooting up. He's growing like a beanpole. But yeah, I think that can sometimes also be something that people are it's a bit of a shock, I think, to suddenly start going down that process of finance and find that even bridging finance can take quite a number of weeks to get over the line. And that's, as you say, that's where private finance is so much more flexible. It doesn't go on your credit rating. It's all about building the relationship. And of course, savers at the moment are getting 0.1% return in the bank if they're lucky.
Yeah. Well, my father-in-law's just been charged 50 quid for having his savings in his account, because his bank's gone into negative. So he's definitely not happy.
No, absolutely. And I think this is where, savers and people who are investing in, have got cash to invest, they're a really ripe kind of business partner potentially, because those are the people who don't know what you know. They can't do what you can do, but you can get a really good return on their investment for implementing your knowledge and skills, and helping them to get a good return as well. So everybody wins, which is always the ideal solution, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my issue, going back to bridging finance and things like that, is my issue with a lot of those guys, which you don't get with investors, is every time you go back to them, even if you're a repeat customer, they act like they never dealt with you before. It all resets every time, because just like, oh, it's me again. Yeah, we paid your loan back last month. Well, can we just get another? Oh, we need your name and a copy of your driving license. Like, yeah, but we've dealt with you 4 times in the last 18 months. You must sort of have an idea of who we are now. And it's that whole computer says no, and it just absolutely does my head in. Whereas if you can find an investor to work with, where you can kind of, keep going on with projects, you've got a great, relationship with each other, it's so much more healthy than this kind of stonewalling that you get with these lenders all the time. Yes,
absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And it makes involvement in property much harder if you're always relying on outside funding, excuse me, from a bank. Whereas if you have relationships with other people who've got cash to lend to you, and because of what you're doing in terms of your process, you can return that cash to them at the end of the project. Mostly what we find with our investors is they just say, no, I don't want the money back. Here, you can have it again, because why would I want to put it back in the bank again when I can get a better return from you guys? So it just makes sense to go down that route. Now, James, just want to ask you about your team. So it sounds like you've got a couple of business partners that you're working with right now. Is that correct?
Yeah, so Anthony is a co-investor. Myself and Anthony are kind of putting the money in to make everything at the moment we've got going to happen. Anthony's dealing with the the lending side of things. I'm dealing with I find the opportunities, add the value, work on the design, deal with all the planning side of it, and then Martin has the teams on the ground. I mean, they're running sort of 10 refurbs at the moment, and a team of sort of 25. Not all guys, it's girls and guys, because they've got great team of decorator girls and stuff. So but there's 25 people working. So it's too much for one person to do.
And what advice would you give to somebody else who's maybe just starting off, or perhaps doesn't have the number of projects that you've got going on simultaneously, but maybe looking to get to that point of doing simultaneous projects? What advice might you give to them based on your experience?
Well, definitely just start with one. Don't try and take two. Even though, like, especially at the moment, if you can find a good deal, it's very tempting to think, oh, I could stretch myself to do two at the same time. Definitely do one and test your model, and test where you are. I just think keep going over the numbers. I mean, I just run numbers all day long in my head, on my phone, on the computer, like making sure everything. I'm a real numbery kind of person, so to me it's really doing that due diligence and never cheating a deal to make it fit by thinking like, oh, if the bills are 100 quid less, this, I could make that, but you're always trying to cheat the numbers to make the deal fit you, so you're becoming a motivated buyer rather than having, just thinking, well, I'll wait till the right thing comes along. You're becoming too motivated, and then you can do something silly.
So actually, that's really an interesting point. You're talking there about being very knowledgeable about your numbers as well, and being savvy about your numbers, and making sure that you've got absolutely everything on that spreadsheet or on that list that you have to calculate to see whether this is really a good deal or not.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's better to do worst case scenarios and be pleasantly surprised by bonuses than it is to be like, oh crap, I've put 50 grand into this deal and I'm making like a couple hundred quid a month or something. You'd be far more upset, and that goes back to me having screwing up a bit at the beginning. Is you then become very serious about that side of it, and because you're never going to make that mistake again, so you're very hot on it.
And how do you make sure that your numbers are correct?
Well, in terms of running costs and things like that, it's, we've got other properties which we can compare against, but you can go on your spare rooms and everything like that to find out, like, the property, what level you're going to finish it at. And if you you're going to, I'm aiming at boutique and I'm aiming at this, you can go on there and you can find within, your area exactly how much all the rooms are going for. It's not just a case of what they're up for, but you can go and see, and if there's 10 rooms listed and 9 of them are all let, it's working at that price. It's no good if you go on, there's 10 rooms and none of them are let and they're all trying, because the price is too high. But if most of them are let, you can go, well, we can hit that target market. It's only 2 minutes down the road, and then working backwards from there, really.
And what about having a team of other people that you're working with in terms of, so you mentioned one of your business partners does the dealing with the mortgage companies. Happy days for him.
Yeah, but he's a numbers guy. He loves it. He deals spreadsheets all day. I swear that's what he sees when he shuts his eyes.
For me, he picked short straw. So having somebody on your team or somebody who you're connected with who can help with that. If you're not a numbers person, you need to have somebody, don't you, who's good at that, who can maybe help you really analyze those figures line by line. One of the things that I've learned is that, you might get a property at the right price. You might know what the end market is going to be. You might be able to even have a valuation at the end. But if you don't get the price right on the refurb goes over budget, that can really cost you a lot in terms of scraping that back in the future. Because a couple of times that's happened to me where we've gone over, not only just over time, but also over budget on the refurb. Yeah. That's obviously happened to you in your early days with your flips, possibly. Have you ever had that experience? Or again, what advice would you give to somebody who is maybe nervous that could happen to them?
I think really you've got to speak to people who do it day in, day out. So whether it's builders, or these groups on Facebook and stuff are so, the information you can get, if you just put something out there, if you just say like, guys, I need to put 5 en suites in, how much is it generally costing you to do an ensuite at the moment? And you'll get a list of people just saying, well, we're doing it for this, we're doing it for this. If you just take a mean of all of those, you'll get a rough idea. But I think it's important to definitely speak to people who do it. I mean, the reason we're so close on the budgets now is because, Martin and his guy, I mean, they've done dozens and dozens of these refurbs. So we just know straight away, he literally just walk in and go, yeah, that much. And it will come in within 500 quid of like, 40 grand budget will come in £500 sort of thing within that, because he just does it day in, day out. And I think that, I mean, not even I now can do that. You see, I can design it and I can get it all approved and I can, get that, but it's up to him then to bring it in on the budget that we've agreed.
Well, that's great. I think so. So the key really is here, getting started, learning, accepting you might make some mistakes in the early days, but that's part of the process of learning, and then utilizing that experience to feed into doing it again and again and again. And perhaps becoming a little bit more sort of almost tweaking it each time. So each time you do it, you're maybe becoming a bit smarter about how you're doing it, so that you're saving a bit of money each time, or just becoming more accurate with those numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's face it, nobody does anything perfect to start with. And it's always going to be, it's kind of one of the things I enjoy about it is it's you'll always feel like you're learning. Well, I do anyway. I don't think anyone really feels in this industry like, yeah, I've cracked it. That's it. I'll kick back, relax. My model will work forever. I think as soon as you get complacent with anything, I think you're just going to get wiped out, and the sort of newer, younger people are going to come in and do it a lot better than you. So I think it's important to stay on top of it all. Yeah, absolutely.
Why do you think I invited you onto this show? Because you're a newer, younger person.
I'm not that young. I wish I'd started younger, but yeah.
Well, don't we all? I've often heard it said to me, particularly over lockdown, a lot of people said, "Oh, I wish I'd started HMOs a year or two ago, because now I wouldn't be in a job that's risky. I might be being made redundant. I'd have another stream of income." And of course, we all regret not starting this sooner, because we would all be in a slightly different position if we'd started sooner. But rather than regretting it, far better to say, okay, I'm going to start now. I'm going to start today and get going today. So just thinking about 2021, because we're obviously sort of, mid-November, coming very closely into December now. What are your plans and your goals for 2021, James? Have you had time to think about that? You're obviously a very busy person, but what does next year hold in store for you?
Well, getting all these projects over the line early part of next year. We've got like we're building 7 flats as well. So we've got a new build of 3 flats in one, and then we've got a commercial conversion. There's 4 flats and a large commercial unit downstairs, which we're just discharging the conditions for. So we've got to crack on with that come January, 1st of January, or 3rd of January, or whatever. You've got to crack on with that. So we still, it's kind of, the pipeline is so long for property. Nothing's quick, is it? You buy something and really it's like almost like a 12-month like pipeline window to get that project done. So yeah, just cracking on with what we've got going at the moment, and I think next year there'll be some more opportunities. I mean, I love commercial stuff, and I love commercial to resi conversions and things like that, because like I say, there's way less competition. And if you're creative, you can effectively make money out of nothing if you're really, if you get approved the plans you're after. It's fantastic.
Yes, we've just started working with Kirsty Darkins in the mentoring program. We have a commercial specialist who works with us because she invests in commercial property and she's an expert in commercial conversions as well. And we've been looking at some deals with her over the last few weeks, and you suddenly realize actually these deals turn out so much more than if you're just buying a simple residential property. But actually it's really good to have a portfolio of simple residential property behind you, whether it's buy-to-lets or HMOs, before you go into that, because it's also riskier. You know, you can lose a lot of money in commercial as well. So you need to know what you're doing. And I think it's very much, you know, as a property investor, you can do all the different strategies at once if you want to, but actually sometimes it's better to focus on one strategy, make your money, get that turning over, get that stable, get that working, and then you can start to expand and look at other strategies as you go, which it sounds a little bit like your journey.
Yeah, there's kind of a tree to property, isn't there? An experience tree. You kind of start with buy to let, generally just purchase and relet, and then you do buy, refurbish, refinance, or buy to let, and then you do flips, and then you do HMOs, and then you do commercial conversions, and then you do new builds, and then you do massive high rise. You know, that's kind of like the tree, the experience tree, isn't it? That everyone kind of climbs up.
It is, absolutely, absolutely, and actually that gives you a solid property business. Doing it like that gives you solid income. It gives you stable wealth for the future. It gives you a really good foundation to build on. And I think that when you go into property, as you said, it takes time. And I think there's got to be an element of commitment there. You've obviously decided at some point, right, I'm committed to this, I'm going to make it happen. And I think there is that mental decision that you have to go through at some point where you go, right, I'm at a crossroads. Am I going to do this or am I not? And we all get asked that question internally at some point. And you've said yes, I've said yes, and you know, obviously thousands of other people have said yes, but I know there will be some people watching this who are still sitting on the fence and thinking, should I, shouldn't I? So to those people, what would you say to them?
I would say analysis paralysis kills dreams. Like, you know, you can kind of I mean, I'm guilty of it, of things in the past, and then opportunities get away, and you always just kind of regret like the opportunities that get away. So, I mean, I would definitely, you know, do the education and learn as much as you can. And like I say, just surround yourself in everything. I mean, I'm very boring. I'll when I watch TV, I just screencast like, you know, property videos from YouTube onto the TV and stuff. It's just that constant kind of making it your world. And once you do, you feel a lot more comfortable in the whole process.
Great. Well, this will be on YouTube by the end of the week, so you too can be a YouTube star, James.
Fantastic.
You made it now, haven't you?
Yeah. I'll wait for my gold plaque to come in from YouTube with 1 million subscribers.
Well, listen, it's been absolutely great to have you on today. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, your time, your experience, your journey. It's always so interesting to find out how people started and what their challenges were and some of the things that they kind of experienced and learned along the way. So really, really, you know, massive gratitude to you today, James. Thank you for being here. What I would say is that if anybody's watching today and they've got some questions for James, please put them below the video. And James is part of the group, so it'd be great for you to share your progress. We'd love to see some updates on your projects and how they're coming on, and you know, any updates on the market. You know, it's great to hear what people are doing across the UK with regard to HMOs.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you very much for having me, Wendy.
You're very welcome, James. Thank you very much indeed. And I look forward to speaking to everybody very, very soon. Take care.